Our first contestant, please welcome Mark Maney. Speech title, The Battle of Vimey Ridge and Sheep. The Battle of Vimey Ridge and Sheep, Mark Maney.
Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests, contest chair. My name is Mark, and I'm originally from Canada. And one of the things people find most surprising about me when they learn it is that I spent 9 years in the Canadian military. And I don't blame you for being surprised. I mean, look at this body. Is it really the body of a soldier? But then I say I was in the band, and then all becomes right in the world. Now, one of the coolest things that I got to do while I was in the Canadian military was participate in the 90th anniversary ceremonies of the Battle of Vimy Ridge in Vimy Ridge, France. And if you don't know what the Battle of Vimy Ridge was, its function in Canadian history is vastly similar to how the Battle of Gallipoli functions in New Zealand history. It was the beginnings of Canadian national identity, where we went from being pawns of the British Empire to, golly gee, we're Canadians, sorry, eh? Now, what made the battle so unique was that it was run by Canadians from top to bottom. See, what had happened was at the beginning of the war, the Germans took the ridge, and then the French tried to take it back, and had over 100,000 casualties. And so then the British tried some stuff, and it didn't work out. And so the British and the French, tired of losing their own troops, decided to scrape the bottom of the barrel and get them some Canadians. And so the Canadians strolled on by and decided, hey, now that we're in charge, we're going to bring 3 innovations to how we do this battle. So what were these 3 innovations? Well, the first innovation is they decided to promote based on merit. And I have the feeling that if this principle was employed in a lot of workplaces today, it would also be considered an innovation. See, because back then you wouldn't promote based on merit. The people who would become the officers or in charge were the children of the aristocracy or rich people. And the Canadians were like, that's a really small sample size. And in a sample size that small, there's not a good chance you're going to get the best people. And the Canadians wanted the best people in the best positions so as to have the best results. The second innovation the Canadians thought of was, why don't we tell our soldiers the plan? See, the Canadians had this crazy, mind-boggling idea that there was a greater chance that your soldiers would complete the plan if they knew what the plan was. Crazy stuff, but back then you wouldn't tell soldiers the plan. You tell the officers the plan, you tell the people in charge the plan, but the problem with that would be is then the officers would lead the charge into the gunfire, they'd go down, no one would know what to do, chaos would erupt, and the Canadians were like, why don't we just skip out that whole chaos part? And then the third innovation the Canadians thought of was, why don't we give our soldiers a map? See, like the second innovation, the Canadians had this crazy idea that there was a greater chance that your soldiers would get to where they needed to be if they knew how to get to where they needed to be. Crazy stuff, but back then you wouldn't give soldiers a map because what if they lose it? And are they even smart enough to use this thing? I mean, we are talking about Canadians here. But the Canadians realized that human beings are quite capable and willing to learn how to use something when it's a matter of life and death on how to use it. And so, armed with these 3 innovations, the Canadians basically walked right into Vimy Ridge and took it. It was an immense victory, one of the greatest of World War I, and it brought an immense sense of Canadian national pride. But that wasn't the coolest thing I learned about the Battle of Vimey Ridge. The coolest thing I learned was when I got there. Because when I got there, I noticed that there was all these areas fenced off with sheep in them and signs that said, danger. I was like, whoa, okay, sheep, woo. And so I asked our guide, I said, what's the deal with all the fenced off areas? And the guide said, well, the thing is that so much artillery was fired here during World War I that there's still tons of live artillery just underneath the surface. And so for safety, they fence off the areas. But then I was like, but what about the sheep? And the guide said, well, the thing is that now that this is a Canadian landmark, the Canadian government wants it to look nice. But to look nice, you need to mow the lawn. But it's too dangerous to use lawnmowers. And so they use the sheep to eat the grass. And then I kid you not, this is what the guide said. And he said, Mark, I guess he knew my name. He said, Mark, and every single year since World War I, there's been a sheep that has exploded eating that grass. So what have we learned today? We learned that the Battle of Vimey Ridge was the beginnings of Canadian national identity. We learned that the Canadians brought 3 innovations to how they did warfare by promoting based on merit, telling their soldiers the plan, and giving their soldiers a map. And finally, we learned that World War I is still the leading cause in the world today of exploding sheep. Contest chair.
Can we have 1 minute silence for the judges, please?